do that one more time. Just to repeat on that, that was item number 4 on the agenda, Michael, Councillor Broughton, and you had initially, there was a request or a motion on the table for a $2,500 increase for PMG to produce some materials at the meeting, and you're now saying that $2,500 may not be necessary.
So there is some funding already allocated. I think it's $1,000 already allocated.
$1,000, yes.
And we believe that would be sufficient to get the materials that are required. And in discussions with Susan today, she was suggesting that bringing the consultant at $180 an hour did not seem like the best use. 4 hours of time. We can get the materials and present what would be looking for there. And if there are questions that need to be taken away, that could happen. She actually also offered to come in by Zoom, but that's not effective.
Okay.
So we'll, as I said, Susan Davis is in Montreal. She's in flight actually right at the moment, and will be in Lions Bay later this evening, and was going to be available for discussion tomorrow with doing some idea raising and putting materials together. So
okay. Before we hear from the other councillors, Councillor Barmier, anything you would like to add?
No, it sounds reasonable. I think we're in good hands with Susan Davies, so I'm looking forward to that event.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just interject for a moment? I was a little late in sort of typing up some notes from the meeting from yesterday. I did finally finish it this afternoon and sent it off to all of you just before the meeting. But my what I had down in the notes was it seemed like consensus that the best idea would be to proceed with getting the storyboards, presentation materials, etc., from PMG. Sounded like most of it had pretty much been prepared already, so wouldn't take much more. And Susan seemed to think that that it would be a good idea to have one of them there, preferably Rebecca, who's the principal of the company, to sort of explain anything that needed explaining or to answer questions if anybody had any questions or concerns. That was something that I had down in my notes. There's a fair bit of discussion on that.
Okay. Just before we move on to the other councillors, Councillor Barmier, anything further from you?
No, I recall that as well. But again, we didn't get to see the minutes until just now.
Right. Also the amount that's being requested as an increase is way too high. It's not an additional 2,500 for PMG materials. It would be probably in the neighborhood of 1,800 for the materials and then the hourly fee. So plus you've already got 1,000. So, I think the original quote was 2,500, probably be a couple hundred less if one of them doesn't come, minus the 1,000. So you're probably looking at, more like an extra 1,200 or something like that. Subject to whatever other costs you might be looking at incurring in respect of the town hall. For example, I don't know whether Councillor Broughton was successful in finding somebody to film the town hall, because that was one of the things that was requested.
I don't think we were. The plan was to redo the meeting here. I think that the request was whether to increase the amount to $2,500. I'm sorry, that is unclear. There was $1,000 already in place, so it would be the rest of the 2,500 budget that was there. But in discussion today,
Sir, what discussion was that today, Michael? Was that a discussion, a separate discussion?
Talking to Susan today. So
we're changing what we had agreed to yesterday.
Well, we're pursuing the town hall with Susan Davies, who's a professional.
No, I understand she's a professional, but the agreement was storyboards produced by KPGM, the landscape architect,
Right.
and the presence of Rebecca at the meeting to field some questions, some technical questions. So if the two of you have gone and decided to change that, that's new information. I wasn't aware of that.
Okay, so we've got,
Okay,
obviously there's a difference of opinion in,
Yeah.
from the chair and the co-chair. I think perhaps.
It's not a difference of opinion, it's a lack of communication. So it's Michael going on having conversations with Susan on his own without the other chair present. I wasn't aware of this conversation. So this is not how a committee works. We typically coordinate or cooperate, and this sounds like a bit of railroading to me.
Okay, look, I wasn't part of the conversation. Let's hear from the other councillors.
Okay. Wasn't part of any of the conversation.
Right.
I think what I heard Michael start to describe there sounded like he's going to take back this resolution. I'm hoping the Norm is on board with that. I believe we agreed as a group previously that we didn't need PMG presenting, and I don't know if we want to rehash all the reasons, but we had some valid reasons about that.
Yeah.
That we wanted to be open, hear from residents. Nothing's getting sold. No plan cemented other than the broad understanding of the grant,
right?
Which I think we should all by now understand well enough. And what I heard you say, Michael, is I thought you were going back to that, and that's where my comfort zone was.
Right.
So I was kind of pleased to hear you walking this back. So I'll just leave it at that. Have some other thoughts, but I think that's about it. And anyway, I'll just leave it there.
Okay, Councillor Ryder.
Yeah, Michael, what you were describing sounds reasonable, and I think is consistent with the direction that we initially taken on this. We don't need to, as Neville says, rehash all the reasons, but there does seem to be a miscommunication between the two co-chairs. Perhaps we should table this, and the two co-chairs could get together and bring each other, or perhaps you could bring Norm up to speed.
Sure.
And I guess then the only question that remains now is, do we need? Do we need to authorize further?
The question for this meeting at this point is, do we want to authorize an additional $1,500? Right. Norm, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Michael. If we had $1,000 to do the storyboards and those are still on track, and we are not bringing PMG to the meeting, why do we need to authorize another $1,500? Isn't that a decision?
What I'm hearing Norm say is that he wants to bring PMG to the meeting.
And I heard you say in discussion, Susan didn't think that was necessary.
Yeah.
And that's what council had previously agreed to, which.
So we're at,
So that's that question.
So I briefly asked, and I apologize. And I need to sit down with Norm and
okay, so
go through what happened.
is there a question to council about do we want to pay for PMG or not? That's what I wonder. Is that question?
Either that or table it I'm fine with dealing with it right now. Well,
I mean, when would we be tabling it to?
You can't tell it's in the meeting before.
yeah,
next
I
week.
got.
But we don't have another meeting planned. I don't think we need
Okay,
to fire up another one. It's just
so my feeling is, I'm perfectly fine with you and Norm and Susan. I think I don't see the need for PMG right at this moment to incur more expenses. That's my thing. But do we want to put this to a question?
well, there's no resolution put forward on this.
Okay.
So if someone, and then feeling around the room, I think it's fairly consistent, but certainly understand Norm. Feels we change something to decide before. It sounds like a legitimate concern.
Norm, what-
so it is Norm. It's the business.
Norm, would it serve? I think it would serve well if perhaps you, Susan, Michael got together tomorrow and closed the loop. Brought everyone up to speed and maybe had a further discussion on this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my understanding was we had, at the end of that call, had a fairly clear set of directions. And so what's being presented tonight is different from what we had agreed to on the call. So if an additional call was made and Susan has changed her mind, I would defer to her judgment because she's the person that's ultimately leading the town hall. But I just wasn't aware that there was another meeting, and I just wasn't aware of that. So.
Okay, so just another reminder of communication.
Yeah.
Between us. Perhaps you guys have a call tomorrow.
Whether it's an airport, quick call or whatever, I'm sorry, Norm. Anyway, I put the motion forward, and then subsequent to that, we looked at costing and didn't feel it was cost effective to do that. So I was willing to withdraw the motion, and I'm sorry, you were definitely not in the loop, and I apologize for that.
So I guess my question is, what am I telling PMG tomorrow? Just forget about everything. No presentation materials, no nothing.
Give us some time in the morning to determine that, Peter.
Sorry?
Could you give us some time, and we'll tell you that at our earliest possible time in the morning. If they do want to move forward, if council decided that they wanted to fund that, then we would let you know in the morning.
Well, it sounds like council doesn't want to fund that. So
That council does not.
so the meeting is now, so the funding is not going to be forthcoming. So I guess I will just tell them that no, their materials are not required and their presence is not required. Is that more or less the correct understanding?
Some of the materials may be required, Peter. I'm not sure yet.
Okay, well, I'll let you get back to me on that then tomorrow in terms of what it is you're hoping to receive and the available funds to do that, and I'll see if to what extent I can make that work. And
they said that they had prepared most of the materials. It sounds like any materials that we may need are already prepared, so it's not like there's going to be a great rush to do it. It's in place.
Well, just if I can jump in here, just to be clear on something. So the understanding at the table here right now is that this motion is not going forward, and further that PMG as of this moment is not going to be attending the town hall, but may be providing some presentation materials. Is that correct? That's right. Okay, and we will leave it to the co-chairs to work out the communication error and bring each other up to speed.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll trust that the presentation materials are covered by $1,000 previously approved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item, closed council meeting. Proposed topics for discussion in the absence of the public. That the meeting be closed to the public on the basis of matters to be considered under the following sections of the community charter. And where required, the council does consider that the matters could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. Section 90 in brackets number 1. A part of the council meeting may be closed to the public if subject matter being considered relates to or is one of the following: person's personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality, or another position appointed by the municipality. And the consideration of whether a council meeting should be closed under a provision of this subsection or subsection 2. Council does not anticipate reconvening the open meeting. Okay. I'll strike that. I think we will reconvene after this report out. Okay, with that.
We should let the gallery know.
We'll come out of closed and
Actually, sorry, I thought this was my draft. Peter's drawn this up. Why don't we, council does not anticipate reconvening the open meeting other than to report out if applicable and adjourn the meeting. So gallery, you do not have to stand by, and thank you for tuning in. Okay.
Okay,
With that, we'll sign off.
yeah,
and-
just give me 1 second here and I'll
Sure.
I'll stop the recording in a sec.